Hey, welcome to another great episode of the Real Deal Podcast. Happy Tuesday, April 7th. April is now already flying by as well. It is April 7th, Tuesday morning. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Harden. Glad to be back with another incredible episode. And I have another great returning guest. She's podcast family now, as I told her. Second time on the show, but looking forward to catching up with her. But before I bring her on, hit my music. Let's get it. All right. Once again, welcome to another great episode of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Courtney Harden. Like I said, glad to be back with another incredible episode. You can follow the show on all the podcast platforms, whether it is Spotify, Apple, YouTube, BS3 Network, BS3TVLive.com, BS3 Network, Roku channel, iHeartRadio, wherever you find podcasts, you can download, subscribe, listen, watch all those things. So we appreciate all the feedback, comments, and everything too. Always appreciate that. You can follow me on all the social media platforms, Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm on Blue Sky. So at Get the Real Deal, Courtney Harden. If you Google that, you can find all the previous episodes as well. Well, let me bring in like I said, my returning guest. She has done so much. We're going to catch up. It's been a little bit, so we're going to be catching up for sure. She is the founder and CEO at Laces Sports, and also on the board of directors for the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association, which she has done, and we're going to catch up on all of that as well. So let me bring in my wonderful guest, Kamini Manivannan. Welcome to the show. Back to the show. We appreciate it.
It's nice to be here again. I think like you touched on it. It's been almost 7, 8 months now. So
Yeah.
nice to see you too.
Yeah. It's so good to have you back on. I enjoyed our conversation last time. Glad we connected through LinkedIn actually, and I think it was LinkedIn. It was LinkedIn or Instagram. It was one of the two. I think it was LinkedIn. And like you said, it's been about 7, 8 months. So glad to have you back on. I really do appreciate that. And like you said, you're big in these fantasy sports and fantasy sports and gaming, all those things. So so glad to have you back on. Really appreciate that. So let's catch up. Let's see how have things been going for you over these last 7, 8 months. Things have changed. You launched Laces Sports, all that. So tell us a little bit what you've been up to over the last 7, 8 months since we last spoke.
Yeah. So a couple of things I think have happened in the last couple of months. We launched a Substack that comes out every week. It was every other week, but now the cadence is every week. We figured out quickly that, and you probably can relate to this, we figured out quickly that fantasy sports education actually is a small problem in this industry, but
Yeah.
it's actually much bigger than that. It is actually just lack of education in sports in general.
Yeah.
Because I think as we continue to build our product, talk to potential users and customers, everyone was telling me, like, when it comes time to drafting, I could auto draft and do a good job. I've had several people tell me they auto drafted and won their league, which that happens a lot in fantasy football. But it's not even just like, who do I draft in the first round? But it's, okay, who is this quarterback? Like, what does a quarterback do in football? Like,
Yeah.
why is he one of the most important people in football? So we took a second to zoom out of our vision of, okay, fantasy football for women, but a lot of it has kind of evolved in the last couple of months to sports education in general seems to be really lacking.
Mm. That's a really good point. And you're right. I think you said sports education, fantasy sports, podcasting. I think all of those intertwine with each other. You said of that lack of education, because when somebody is asking for advice, and I saw that you did you put a post up on LinkedIn about, you're pitching a product or leading a team, and everything too, and learning, and that way, education is very important, because some people ask, well, how do I start a fantasy league, or how do I get into a fantasy league, whether it's football, baseball, whatever it is. And as you said, you could auto draft, you could teach, but it's that education part that's, detailed education, that is lacking. And I noticed that what you've been doing even lately too is educating. You were educating about March Madness. You said it's like a one-on-one class in it, and I've enjoyed those series that you were doing
Thank
as
you.
well. So talk about that idea you said of educating someone in, whether it's fantasy sports, maybe betting, and or just in general, that education, and teaching them, like, okay, what's a quarterback, what's what's this and what's that, Super Bowl trends, and you were doing all those things, which I incredible. I think it's an incredible series.
Thank you. It started really with my own friends asking me questions,
Nice.
explaining terms that they didn't feel comfortable asking anyone else, or explaining, okay, why is this game a big deal? Why should I tune in? Or what's happening during the Super Bowl besides just the game, which
Mhm.
the Super Bowl series was probably our most talked about and shared series that we did. It was a weekly series that we put out of talk to me or teach me about football like I'm five,
Yeah,
something.
yeah, you're right, right.
Um, and that one was really hit close to home because I often ask ChatGPT, teach me something like I'm five,
Mhm.
because it does a really good job of explaining. And
Yeah.
so that one happened to be a really fun one to do. And it was not even just like a lot about jargon and stats, because
Mhm.
we have a lot of media outlets that do a really good job with the stats and the numbers and trends. Like ESPN has that covered, Yahoo Sports has that covered. A lot of the fantasy apps out there are, whether it's FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever it is, they have all the numbers you need to be successful in
Yeah.
sports. But I've just found that it's really hard to get into something that's new, especially as an adult, especially sports. If you don't have someone to explain it to you who's sitting next to you, it's really hard to understand what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, and another thing too with that is, like you said, we know the sports, we know the rules, and we're watching. But it's interesting because we may have learned it years ago, of just watching, and things like that, maybe when we were kids, and now that we're so, ingrained in it too. We're just watching it for our, entertainment, research, whatever we're doing. But explaining it to someone else, you got to go back, as you said, like you're 5 years old, that someone's explaining it to you. So now explaining it to someone that doesn't understand, what about this rule in football, like, why did this happen, why did they do a fair catch, why did why is that called a fumble, why is this, those positions are in motion, the receivers are in motion, and or what's on all sides, or what's a penalty, and things like that. You have to kind of, like say, you got to kind of go back and think, wow, and explaining it to them, like you say, we might know a lot of it, but still we're also learning too. And then now we're explaining to someone else that might not know that. And it's sometimes it's hard. It's hard to explain that, because we haven't had to need it for ourselves in a long time.
We haven't. And all the sports I learned as a kid, I cannot really imagine learning them now. I
Yeah.
literally don't even know where I would start. Like, for example, I played tennis my whole life. I
Yeah.
played all through high school, and I watched every major Grand Slam since I was five, and with my family. So we're a big tennis family. All of us played tennis. But if I wasn't coached through that at a young age, it's kind of hard to learn as an adult. And tennis isn't like super like difficult to learn, but why does it go from love to 15 to 30 to 40? Like
Right.
the
Right.
scoring is like kind of strange,
Hmm.
and no one talks about it, but you're just expected to know if you're going to the US Open or if you're going to Wimbledon, whatever it is, you're expected to learn. But maybe just people assume that you know. Like, I don't know. How are other people learning is what I've started to ask my friends. I mean, have you asked people that you know, how did you learn about sports?
Yeah. Yeah. That's, yeah. And that's what that, that's the that's the beauty of it too. You're teaching someone as you said, okay, yes, like my mother-in-law, this was a long time ago. We were watching tennis, as you said, and teaching her the score, what set means, what the sets and the matches, and why does it go to, as you said, love 30, love 15, 15 40. What's deuce, what's all these things, and teaching her that, and she was like, "That's confusing." I said, yes, it can be. It can be. But I said the more you watch, the more, and you continue, then you'll start learning. Well, why is it now 2-0 in the set? Like, why, what happened there? And why did it go to so many different rounds? And yeah, so I remember that too. And it's just something that we picked up, and now it's like, okay, now we gotta kind of teach uh others that same thing. So yeah, it's then the more you educate them, the more they will learn, and if they're very interested, they'll watching and things like that, they'll start learning the rules and things like that. But you said you got to teach them from that. It's almost like from the 5-year-old ourselves of how we learn. But you're right. Another you brought out that was interesting is that how will we learn now? How will we learn the sports if we didn't know it, right?
Yeah, and I think maybe a couple months ago I had gone to a Rangers game,
Mm,
which I'm not really a hockey fan. I'm a fan, but
yeah,
I'm not really a hockey fan. Like I don't follow it throughout the season. And I do like to do some prep before I go to a game.
yeah,
Um, I like to know who to watch. I like to know, you know, is this game a rivalry game? Is it like a
yeah.
historic rivalry? What's the storyline? Is there beef between players? I kind of know what to ask now, but I found myself just Googling this information.
Mm,
I
yeah,
didn't know where else to go.
yep,
And Google just kind of gave me a bunch of news sources like CNN, ESPN, Yahoo, whatever. And so we've been thinking a lot about this of like fan experience when they go to a game.
yeah.
What level of knowledge do you have walking into a live game?
Yeah, that's yes. And you said you educate yourself before you go into something that you might not know too much about. Like if you wanted to go to, say, a golf tournament, okay, like the Masters is this week, and you want to learn about, yeah, you want to learn about the Masters. Why is it the biggest major, of this of golf of the season, and the history and all of Augusta National and things like that. Again, educating, and if you get an opportunity to go, which would be great, that's one of the hardest things to get a ticket for, and everything too. And but it's like, well, why? Why is it so prestigious? Why is it this and that? But you said educate, uh, you know, ourselves to before you get to a big sporting event. You said like the U.S. Open and tennis. Why is it such a big thing in tennis? Why is it called a major? Why is it called a Grand Slam? Why is it called all these things? And I think those are very interesting questions for people to be educated on, as well. So got to get into Laces Sports. You're the CEO and founder. It's a mobile fantasy sports app designed for women and casual fans. Talk about how that's been going. And everything too. Because I know last time when you talked, you haven't launched it yet, but it was more of just in those beginning phases. But talk about how that's been over these last 7-8 months.
Yeah, so we pivoted a little bit away from fantasy for a couple weeks as we were figuring out, okay, the bigger problem is lack of education in sports, not just
Mm,
fantasy. I
yeah.
think fantasy is really a wedge into this market, but it's way, way bigger than that. A bigger
Mhm.
problem than I thought at the beginning, which I've only learned about this through a lot of user discovery and talking to people of different ages, different demographics. Um, and our country now, the US, is filled with a lot of immigrants who didn't grow up watching American sports.
You're right.
They grew up watching cricket or soccer.
Hmm.
And it's become way more apparent that they are also kind of having trouble following along. And I think there's a learning curve to any sport that you come across,
Yep.
but we've figured out that a lot more people than just women could use what Laces is trying to build, which now has kind of transitioned into an education platform for sports. So anybody can come to the site. Anyone can come to the app, which still is to be launched. We didn't want to launch something we were kind of unsure about, and so
Yeah.
we paused for a second, continued to keep building and like researching, and so now we're kind of pivoting towards an educational tool that
Okay.
anyone can use.
Yeah.
And how do we make this fun? How do we make this accessible? How do we make this fun for anyone who has never really been around sports? What kinds of questions are they asking is something that we're always curious to know. If you're going to a live game for the first time, what do you want to know as a fan
Mm, mm.
if you've never watched a live game? Which I feel like now is becoming a lot more common.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yes. As you said, you go to a live game, and that experience in itself is different than watching it from home. The interactions with the fans, the interaction with the, watching them live, watching the athletes live, watching the coaches and referees, and the where you're in the stadium, where you're in a coliseum or arena. Yeah, you're right. And another good point that you said the globally sports globally, education, as you said, the overseas, just in general, they said growing up, they maybe did not watch. They said cricket and soccer. Usually, that's the big global sports. You got the World Cup coming up now, so that's another big. I mean, that's the biggest global sport there is, and so people might not understand, like, why is it, again, why is that so big? Why is the World Cup so big? Why is it, and things like that. So I'm sure you're going to be educating. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure that's going to be a series. World Cup in the States, this time around. It's going to be, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I know Philadelphia's getting some. I know it's going to be very, very busy June and July of the World Cup coming up. But I think that, like you said, you're pivoting with Laces Sports, and you said making it more, it was already an education, but even more so of other sports with the education. So looking forward to that. You also, being part of the Tech Sports Tech 22 winners announced, and Laces Sports was announced on that. Congratulations,
Thank you.
first and foremost. Yeah, talk about that accolade and how that all came about.
Yeah, so that is a award that is given to sports tech companies who are in the startup world, kind of which companies to watch out for, what they're building,
Mhm.
and so I think the entries kind of ranged from like wearables to data and analytics, to fan experience, and I think there was an overarching theme within some of the companies that were selected of inclusion, which is becoming another really big part of sports, is how do we include everyone and make it feel welcoming to beginners. So I think there was a couple other startups that were recognized for inclusion, as one of the judges pointed out.
Wow, yes, I'm sure that was like that's a big accomplishment. As you said, it's you said Tech Round Sports Tech 22, hundreds of entries spanning wearables, athlete analytics, you said broadcasting, fan experience, all things that you are very in tune with and very locked in with, analytics and fan experience, and it being selected as one of the top sports technology companies to watch this year. Definitely. So congratulations. That's
Thank
something to very be big proud of. I just love it. I love when I see people that I have connected with and network with, and they're, big wins for them. I feel like it's so great to see. So that's a big part of it. As well. So let's go. I want to go back to that, the analytics and fan experience. I know we really talked about that last time. And where do you see the fan experience going now? As you said, with education and learning and things like that, and sports and media and is always interchanging and a lot of different things, social media. But that fan experience, in your opinion, where do you see it going, maybe for the next couple of years, now AI and things like that. But where do you see that going?
I think personalization is about to take it to like the next level.
Okay. Yeah.
We're already getting real personal with the fans. once you enter an arena, a lot of arenas are becoming one of those like smart arenas. So as soon
Mm-hmm.
as you scan in, they know exactly who is in the arena, how to try to tailor your experience to you. But I think like they're going to go as deep as they can, as far as we allow them to go, people who are collecting the data, because I'm sure privacy concerns will come into this at some point. But I think as they're building newer arenas, it's going to be super technology forward, and they're going to know like, okay, Courtney's entering the Eagles game right now. He's a huge Eagles fan. He's already purchased multiple jerseys. He's come to multiple games. So Courtney knows what's up. And I think like sports betting, prediction markets, all of that is going to be factored into your experience. So like if they know you have some interest, you visited FanDuel's website, you visited Prize Picks, whatever it is, maybe that might get baked into your fan experience, into the arena. I don't know. I'm really honestly just kind of throwing ideas out there. That could
Yeah.
be a part of your experience as more of these like prediction apps are partnering with
Mm-hmm.
sports teams and leagues. It's like, okay, Courtney knows the Eagles are playing the Cowboys, for
Mm-hmm.
example. Courtney could bet on the Eagles. So maybe you just send him like a prop bet and
Okay.
see if he does anything with it.
That yes, yeah, that yeah makes total sense. You're
It
right.
could.
Like
Not
yeah,
saying it will, but it
right,
could.
right. But it could, yeah, for sure. And yeah, and that's a great fan experience because you do have now the fan experience with um it might be getting out of hand with the sports betting a little bit, but it's again educating and you get to a game because you said you have people that they bet live betting sports betting and it you say okay the third quarter of an Eagles Cowboys game, okay, who's going to score the first points
Mhm.
in that third quarter, and you have these prop bets and you said you could bet um for on the third quarter, first touchdown or first points or who's going to score that, and boom, there it is. That's the fan experience. I think it's a great way for the fans to get more engaged, depending, like you said, on the education. I know that's a big word, but it's like said, educating them, responsibly when it comes to sports betting, and able to use that fan experience, not just watching the game, but also experiencing that in a lot of different ways when they're live betting. Either they're at the game or they're at their home on their phone, maybe at a sports book, something like that. I think that wave is still strong, still going forward. I really do believe that.
Yeah, and I just went to the Hawks were in town, so I had to go see them. The Hawks
Mm-hmm.
came and played the Nets. So as you know, I'm from Atlanta, so I'm a Hawks fan.
Yeah. Yes.
So the Hawks came into town, and we're on the brink of playoff season, right, for the NBA as it's
Yes.
continuing. And so I was at the game with a couple of friends, and as usual, somebody has a parlay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Luckily, it was for our team. So and had it for the Hogs, which was nice.
Yes.
But it definitely makes you view the game a little bit different,
Differently. Yeah.
because you want your team to win, but you want them to win to like a certain extent. So like someone had the over under on the game, and then another leg of the parlay was, okay, this person's going to have exactly 18 points, or this person's going to have exactly 4 rebounds. Like these are all true numbers that this person had on their parlay.
Mhm.
And I found myself like, when he told me what the parlay was, I found myself really tuning in at that point too. I was already tuned in, but I feel like I was really paying attention to the
Yes.
scoreboard when he said that.
Yes, yeah, 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 and that's the part of the beauty of that is, like I said, when it's done right, it's just like anything else. It's like social media when it's used right. It's a great resource. But if you're into that, sports betting, you said parlays and things like that. You said this player get these 18 points, and they got to have all these things with the parlay to happen to hit for them to make a little bit of money. Parlays are always hard, especially those 5 to 10 leg parlays. Those are very hard to hit. I don't usually do parlays myself, but I understand it. But because it's more of but it said it keeps you locked into. They said you're paying attention, but now you're more paying attention. Another again, a fan experience, and I think that's why these leagues have jumped into the sports betting, or at least you know they had accepted it because of okay, this is more fan experience for us too. Now, like I said, there's some negatives to that for sure, but I won't get into all of that. But it's still more of it gets people more engaged when it comes to watching a sport.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it
Mhm.
worked on me. I don't bet on sports, but I definitely was way more engaged because I knew this person. Okay, he has money on this game. Like he has real money. He has worked
Yeah,
hard for it, and he put the money on the game. And I think like a lot of people will agree who bet on sports, it makes it more fun. Even if it's just a regular season game, middle of the season, the game doesn't
yeah,
really do a lot for you.
right.
If you have a couple dollars on the game, it just makes it a little that much more, exciting, I feel.
Exciting. Yes. Long as the better sports betters, taking it too far of threatening the players, sending them down nasty DMs because they didn't score this many points, they didn't do this. That's a whole nother thing when it comes to that. But yeah, sports betting can be fun when it's done responsibly, when it's done with fun, because at the end of the day, it's yes, people want to win money, but a lot of us we lose more than we win. And it's supposed to be fun. When it becomes too serious, that's when it's like, okay, you should like pull back, scale back on, and we lose a lot of money, and that's a whole nother educating them, bankroll and all that. I'm into sports betting, so I can, you know, hit on a little bit of that, but it's more of, as you said, it's supposed to be fun, and you get a couple dollars on top of that. Hey, so be it. yeah.
Win-win, I guess.
Yeah, it's a win-win. It's a win-win situation with that as well. Speaking of sports and fantasy sports, you're now a member of the board of directors, Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association. Congratulations again
Thanks.
on that. Yeah, for sure. And you just got that in just this month in April. Talk about being part of now of the board of directors of the FSGA Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association.
It is a huge honor
Hmm.
because when I first went to this conference over a year ago, I went in with just an idea on a piece of paper.
Right.
Aces Sports was really just an idea in February of last year, 2025, and we're only in April of 2026. And so I went to the conference, and it's a it's a small industry. I could tell you that fantasy sports is a niche within already like a niche.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I I mean I'm guessing that people really liked the idea of something for women specifically because every app that's out there is typically kind of fighting for the same sort of fan.
Right.
They're fighting for males predominantly who are between the ages of 18 to 45.
Hmm.
That's a very typical, most active type of user when it comes to sports betting or fantasy football or fantasy baseball, basketball, whatever it is. So I think a lot of them are similarly just fighting over the same kind of fan. But I was coming in with a different perspective where I said, okay, but what about women? Like,
Yeah.
there are a percentage, there's a huge percentage of women who play fantasy sports. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of them. But there's also a lot who have some interest, but don't exactly know how to get into this world. Because the guys that are playing fantasy football are not going to just open a roster spot for their girlfriend or for their friend who is new.
Mm.
A lot of people wouldn't. So I think like as I went into this conference, people were like, we never really thought about that. Or if someone had already tried, I think it wasn't executed in a way that stuck with the industry. And so I think people were intrigued. Let's put it that way. I think people were intrigued about where my head was at when it came to the company and what direction we were going to go in. And so just made a lot of good friends along the way at
Yeah.
FSGA, and everyone has been so welcoming, so warm. And I'm very, very lucky to be a part of the board now, which will just help drive this industry forward and like try to make this more inclusive for everyone.
Yeah, I love that. And you said it's a 21-person board, and you said leaders of FanDuel, Underdog, DraftKings, all the sports betting, fantasy uh, organizations. I mean, those names, DraftKings, FanDuel, and Underdog, powerhouses, as you said, and you're bringing that. You said a different perspective, a new voice, and it's needed. It's needed in this space of that. So I look forward to see what He said with your voice, which will carry over in the industry and being a huge part of that. I think it's great. It's great to see again. And you said to being a board member of that, and you were there. You said you were bringing. You hosted. Hosted a. Then you host a like a conversation as well. Talk about that of hosting of that from there, um, and everything. A panel that you did as well.
Yeah, this ties back into your earlier question of like AI in sports.
Yes. Yes.
We talked about on the last podcast and this podcast.
Yeah.
When we were planning for the conference earlier last year, I had just brought it up to them and I said, while we're thinking of themes and thinking of what's happening in the industry, I
Yep.
think we need to talk about AI. We should talk about it, at least address it, because every major company is trying to figure out how do we become,
How to use it? Yeah.
yeah, how do we use AI in our product and how do we keep the integrity of the product and how do we keep it ethical? So I think the idea was mostly just to see if the FSGA membership liked talking about AI, if
Mhm.
they resonated with it, if they wanted to know more about it. I had seen an AI panel work at a previous fantasy football conference, and people were asking all sorts of questions like, which AI tool should I use? Or should I use AI to help me draft my fantasy team? So there are all kinds of like different questions that were floating around. And I think that's what drew the inspiration for the panel was let's talk about AI. Let's recruit some panelists who use AI in their daily lives. They run sports companies. Let's just see how they're using it. Like, what are the different use cases that there are? And if we can make them about fantasy football or if we can make them about sports, let's tie it all in. And it was very successful. It drew a lot of interest, and they want a part two in our conference that's happening in Philly in July.
Okay. Well, let me know. I will definitely be on the lookout. I didn't know that. So I'm always, I've been trying to do a lot of different things and going to a lot of different conferences and things like that. So if you do show up, let me know for real, and we can link up, and I'll try to get there as well. Like since it's right in my backyard here in Philly. Yeah, yeah, we'll definitely be in touch. So for sure. But again, congrats on that. As you said, you went from you know panelist to hosting. That's a big jump on that too. Of being part of that. Paneling, and then you said you were just again another voice, another perspective of how to use AI, because you said AI is used everywhere now, and you could it's just right on. Like you said, you type something in on Google, AI, they ask you what you want. Do you want the AI version? You want so it asks you that, and it's great to use as different ideas to kind of give you an idea. And I know when AI first launched, people were very hesitant on what how to use it. Is it taken away from a lot of different things? And again, used the right way is a very great tool to a source to use.
I think it's only going to become bigger these
Yeah.
next few months. I think as everyone's trying to figure out how to use it. And right now, it's definitely low adoption. But I think
Mhm.
it's mostly just because people don't know yet how to use it in a way that's going to benefit their company, a lot of data privacy concerns. I'm sure if you read the news, you'll see what problems OpenAI is having or Anthropic is having.
Yeah.
It's changing the world in a lot of good ways, but I think it needs some tweaks
Mm.
to, I guess, make it safe
Right.
for all ages that are going to be using it.
Yeah, yeah, so that's a good point. Yeah, safe and to its full potential, when it can be used as a great source to be helpful in a lot of businesses and companies and things like that for sure. All right. Well, Kamini, it's always been a pleasure. I know I said we want to do a hard stop here, and we could have again talked for quite a bit. And but wanted the last question I wanted to ask you is like, what else do you have coming up? What you can announce at least. Anything coming up within these next, leading into the spring, summer, and fall. What else you have coming up?
Well, we are deep in talks for our conference in Philly. So, like, all of that is really in the works right now, doing all the conference committee stuff. And now entering as a board member, I think I have like a different view of the conference,
Yeah.
trying to make it more inclusive for everyone. That is really my focus. And then on the LACES side, product is our focus, content is our focus. So you'll continue to see me maybe spam your LinkedIn feed with all the education and all of
Okay.
that. We're preparing for the World Cup, preparing for
Yeah.
NBA playoffs. So there's a lot going on, and we're listening to our users and customers who have asked us to cover certain sports and certain rules. So we're very lucky that I think everyone has started to speak up and say, "Hey, I never understood this. Like, can you talk about this?" And we listen. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And you said all these big sporting events is getting ready to happen with the World Cup. You said NBA playoffs, WNBA starts next month, and well, this month and next month, and then you got, you said so many baseball, in Major League Baseball All Star games here in Philadelphia as well.
Mhm.
There's so much. There's the PJ Championship here in Philly next month. So there's a lot of different things happening. I'm glad Philadelphia's finally getting things here. This has been the year as well, but not even just that, but other different events and and things like that. Fantasy football, the draft is coming up. The fantasy football will be here, so a lot of different things. You said you're a big tennis fan like me. More majors coming up as well. So U.S. Open. I know you're a big fan. You're there at the U.S. Open there, and what's French Open and Wimbledon. Coming up, so looking forward to. Like you said you're expanding. I'm looking forward to your content. Looking forward to all the things you got coming up on LinkedIn and things like that. So we'll definitely be talking again for sure. But Kamini, thank you again. Really always appreciate you jumping on as for the second time. And we'll have to do this again. But let everyone know they can follow you, find you. I want to reach out to you and social media.
Yes, LinkedIn is actually where everything is public. All of our socials are
Yeah.
connected to our pages. So follow me on LinkedIn. I feel like that's where I post everything that you need to know, and all the launch stuff will be public there as well. And so, yeah, that's where you can find us.
Yeah, LinkedIn. So again, all those things, follow, subscribe, like, share. Those are the easiest things for support. So again, thanks, Comedy. I really appreciate it as always. And best of luck with everything you got coming up. And maybe in when you're in Philly in July, just maybe we can link up or there's something, and we'll discuss that when it gets closer in July. So for
Let's
sure.
do it.
Yes, yes. All right. Thank you, Comedy. Really appreciate it. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Courtney.
Yeah. Thank you.